Hi, what's your name?
Victory. Like honestly, I'm so very like all the times, like all the times, like all the times. I like all my friends and all my cousins, like all my friends. I can't brush my hair.
No, me neither.
No, it's mine. It's
¿Qué
mine.
pasó?
It's mine.
No, I really need it for the Bible.
Please.
You wasn't even wanting it, man. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Patrice. This is Representation Save Souls Podcast. This is episode 29. Today, we will be talking about co-parenting. That's why you saw the clip earlier of my daughter. She is why I co-parent, because she's here. So pretty much, we're just going to talk about co-parenting. I deal with the high conflict co-parent. So we're definitely going to get into all of that, how I navigate with that, and how I also put God first. Before I actually get into the podcast, I am going to pray us in as always. Lord God, thank you for just allowing me to have another topic, another episode on today, God. I just pray that I'm able to speak transparently, God, that someone else can feel seen through this podcast, and just anyone that is struggling, whether it's a man of God or a woman of God. I just pray that that they'll feel seen through this episode, and that they'll understand that they're not alone, that if they even desire to have a healthy co-parenting relationship, that it is possible if it's in your will, God. Or even if they're the default parent and they have to do things on their own, God, just remind them that you are their provider and that you will sustain them for everything they feel that they may lack, God. So we just thank you for just being constant in our lives, God. Even when we move, even when we get frustrated, even when we feel like, God, I can't take anymore, you're still there and you're still there for us. So we just thank you for making provisions for single parents, God, and that our life can be redeemed through you. So we thank you. We lift you up. We send this prayer back to the heavens in Jesus' name. Amen. Co-parent, Google's definition: share the duties of raising a child, used especially of parents who are separated or are not in a relationship. So when you're co-parenting with someone, it's like, it could be my situation. You could be in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, and I put that with quotes because God doesn't recognize it, but you could be in a relationship, or you could have been married, now you're divorced, and now you have to co-parent. Or you could, just be single, the other parent, it could be a man, or, father or mother, that could be a single parent as well. And maybe the other parent's just not involved at all, or maybe they're like inconsistent. It depends on what your situation is. But regardless, if you are a single person, or you're not in a relationship or not in a covenant with the person, you could be a single parent. And there are also sometimes where people are married and they say they feel like a single parent because their spouse is not doing their full end of helping them parent, and they feel like it's not 50-50 how it should be. So that is what co-parenting is, and co-parenting does, come through the world. But we're actually going to talk about God's design of marriage. And again, even if you do get married, which is, God's design of being married, then being fruitful and multiplying, it still can end up in divorce, maybe if that spouse steps outside of what they're supposed to be doing. But this is God's design for marriage, and also people having children. Genesis 2, verses 24. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. Then we're also going to go to Ephesians. So in Genesis, they were saying that when man and woman come together, you're becoming one flesh. So that's why marriage is taken so seriously by God, and that's why it's really related to or called a covenant, because when you get married, it's literally the two of you like coming together in one flesh, and both of you guys are supposed to be submitted to God. So it's like when you disrespect your husband, or your wife when your wife disrespects the husband, or the husband disrespects the wife, that is basically disrespecting God as well. Ephesians 5, verses 22 to 23. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Actually go to verse 24 as well. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. So it's reminding us again the actual design of marriage through God, which means that your wife and husband are supposed to be submitted to each other, and your husband's supposed to lead you. Also, your husband's supposed to be submitted to God. So he's supposed to be leading you actually closer to God. It's not supposed to be like a dictatorship, like, oh, I'm the husband, everything I say go. Like, you still should be able to articulate how you feel to your husband, but also respect his decision. Like, if you get to the same result, even though you wouldn't have did it in the same path that your husband did it, you're still supposed to let him lead in that way and not supposed to be really controlling. So my co-parenting relationship has been very difficult. We go from like cordial to like beefing, and here at DMV that basically means like you're at odds. We go to cordial again. We go to sometimes not speaking. But the main thing throughout this relationship, this co-parenting relationship, I have learned, which I'll speak more about at the end when I like wrap it up, but I have learned to do my best to kind of put my feelings aside and not let my feelings towards her father affect her relationship with him. And I know a lot of the things will come out even through her just observing like who we both are as individual parents. Like, a lot of the stuff is just going to speak for itself. I don't have to badmouth him or, do anything like that, because one is just not necessary, but also, and it's going to be hurting her, my daughter, but she'll, see it for herself. So I think throughout this podcast, hopefully you guys can get a gist of that. So my co-parenting relationship, it was very hard in the beginning because I was with Vicky's dad for 10 years. Whew, lagging. I was with Vicky's dad for 6 years. I don't know if it was 6 or 7, but I think 6 years. And I, really loved him because he was my first love. So, and I didn't love myself. So that was like a whole another thing with idolization, which I'll get into later as well. But it was really hard to go from being a couple to actually just strictly co-parenting, and I didn't really fully understand how that would work, and I felt like I was trying to teeter the line of still getting the benefits of being in a relationship with him, but that's like I didn't want to be with him, but it was all I knew. So it was very difficult for me to transition out of the romantic side of everything. But nowadays I don't look at him like that at all. I actually don't understand how I looked at him like that back then, but it's you basically get in relationships based off of how you feel about yourself and your relationship with God. Whether your relationship with God is non-existent or not, all of your relationships, friendships, family relationships, even at work, all of that is mirrors of like what you're going through in life currently, how you react to stuff, what you will and will not accept. All of that stuff coexists. But I said all that to say that it is very difficult to co-parent with somebody that you're actively trying to heal from, because you don't get time to just say, oh, this is my ex, or this is somebody I'm healing from. You have a whole child that you're connected with for life. So you still have to actively heal what they put you through or what you put them through or what happened in the relationship. But then you also have to figure out how to have as healthy as you can co-parent relationship with them. And then also throughout this episode, I'm speaking from my perspective and things that I do, because my child's father is high conflict. So my situation is not like abusive, and my daughter is not regularly in danger. So that's why I push past a lot of the things that I will mention today. But it is very difficult. And I think if your co-parent is abusive, or it's at a point where you have to get a restraining order, or you just don't speak to them at all and there's no contact, that's a completely different situation. So please take what I'm saying in that regard with a grain of salt, because everybody's co-parent relationship is different. So I'm not sitting here and telling you to forgive your co-parent and put yourself or your child in harm's way at all. Because if it's at that point, then you just got to accept that you're going to have to be a single parent until, your child can foster a relationship with the other parent outside of you, especially if it's like a dangerous, not safe situation. So I don't know where I was at, because my daughter keep distracting me. But the main thing is that high conflict is somebody that's basically provoking you, trying to get a reaction out of you, especially like in my situation. Like I said, we was together for 6 years, so that's long enough to kind of know how to push somebody buttons. And in the beginning, we both was, doing that to each other, trying to get a rise out of people. So when I first got out of the relationship with Vicky's dad, I pretty much tried to heal the unhealthy way and went right back into another relationship like less than 6 months later. And in my mind, I justified it, and I was like, well, mentally I've been left a relationship. So for the last 2 years of me and Vicky's dad being together, I didn't want to be there. So in my mind, I'm like, I already started healing 2 years ago, which I really didn't, because if you're still with somebody, how are you healing from them? Or you're still living together, how are you actually healing from them? And at least how I was doing it, like, it was just a mess. So yeah, when I first started the co-parent relationship with the high conflict co-parent, I was a mess in the beginning too. Like, I didn't heal 6 months later after getting out of a relationship with my child's father. I was with somebody else, and the other guy was my boyfriend at the time. So during a pickup and drop off or exchange, me getting my daughter, I had brought that's my ex now, but I had brought my boyfriend at the time, and it was just a mess because he was like, why would you my child's father was saying, why would you bring another man to my house? Like, that's just so disrespectful. But honestly, I was wrong by doing that. But my reasoning of doing that at that time was because my child's father could not let me go. And it was just so annoying. And I was like, I don't know what other way to get in his head that we are never getting back together besides actually physically showing him that I moved on. Now, did I move on too fast? Yes. I should have sat down somewhere. Yes. But my child's father was being out of pocket. Like, he was trying to, like, touch me, things like that during pick up and drops off, and it was just making me very uncomfortable. And I'm just like, you would try me because you think I'm weaker because I'm a woman, but you're not going to try me in front of another man. And that was my reason for doing that then. But let's get back actually to the point of the video. So present day, because he's high conflict, when I know that he's doing certain things to provoke me, I just do my best to not react, especially like not yell, not go off, not go back and forth, especially in front of my daughter, because she's getting older now and she understands when we're arguing. It makes her really uncomfortable. Like, she'll start screaming and she'll start getting frustrated. So I feel like that's not fair to her. And then when I know I'm triggered, I try my best to disarm my triggers. Most of the time that means me just like leaving, and I am the type of person, I will like leave a situation very quickly, and I do that in order for me not to be reactive. Like, if I know I just don't have the mental capacity or the emotional capacity in that moment to not respond, or when I do respond, if I'm not gonna blow up, I just end up leaving. And it's very important, especially because my daughter's a toddler, or transition to kindergarten age or school age now, that my daughter's not going to be young forever. And yes, it is hard being a single parent or doing a lot of stuff on my own. Even though you have family support, it is ultimately on me as a parent. But I do, like, what comforts me is that my daughter's not going to be this young forever. So at some point, she's going to be a bit more self-sufficient. And at some point, it'll be like, more flexibility. And I won't always have to ask people to watch her for certain things. At certain events, she can come with me instead of staying at home. Or sometimes when she's older, later on in teenage years, she can stay home by herself. So it's not as restrictive when they get older. Do you still have to be a parent? Yes. And I know even from my relationship with my mom, parenting goes far beyond somebody turning 18. So the main thing actually when dealing with a high conflict parent as well is do your best to not let them trigger you. Like, when you know that they're triggering you, when you know that they're poking you, trying to provoke you, do your best to disarm your own triggers. And it's hard in a moment to be like, okay, this person's provoking me, but how is it time for me to self-reflect when they're trying to get a rise out of me? But that's the very point. Don't let them get a rise out of you. I don't care if you have to walk away. I don't care if you have to block their number for the night. Whatever you have to do, or maybe even just text them from a parenting app. That's really big. Like, if my child's father would pay for that, I would literally only communicate with him through those kind of apps, which Family Wizard is a good app for that as well. But that's just not the situation, because both parents have to pay for the membership. So I think a lot of apps like that work when it's like court ordered, but that's just not in my custody agreement, is for us to communicate through that app. But I would much prefer that. And that's another reason why I actually got my daughter her phone, because I don't really always want to primarily be in contact with him. Like, in the beginning, I wanted to be cordial. I didn't want it to be like so business only or so serious, but he has just gotten to a point where it's just so up and down. Like, one minute we're cool, 1 minute we're not, and it's very emotionally confusing. And it's like you don't really know what person you're gonna get. So it is very confusing. But the main thing is to not let them trigger you. Like, when you know they're in their mode of just poking, like, don't respond, walk away, do whatever you need to do to like get yourself out of that trigger. Also, just stick to the plan. So, like, I have learned the hard way, having a lot of flexibility. Or, oh, you say you can watch them Monday, but now you're asking for Wednesday. Like, no, stick to that schedule. even if maybe Wednesday or another day do work better for you, it's good with a high conflict co-parent to just stick to the schedule, because more than likely they wouldn't, it's not tit for tat, but more than likely they would not have the same flexibility for you. And it's also important for them to understand that when you make a plan, or when you, I don't know, say that they're going to watch them Friday through Monday, when they cut it a day short, that really affects your plan and things that you already had set out, because you thought that you was going to be child free. So it's best to really stick to the plan. And when they don't hold up on the end of their bargain, they just don't see them, because it's not fair to you. Unless you want to run through loops and kind of feel like you're in a circus all over the place, it's up to you. But I would just recommend sticking to the plan. Unless y'all have, that type of relationship, like, you guys can kind of bounce off of each other and maybe the schedule is not so strict. But I think in order for a person to actually take you seriously, you should like stick to the schedule, stick to the plan. So I have learned also the hard way, just because sometimes my child's father will say he's going to get her and sometimes he don't. I have also learned to not always tell her in advance when she's going over there, because I don't ever want her to be like that kid waiting at the door and he does not come. So I literally will tell her last minute, like when we pull it up and I know that he's actually there, because sometimes things happen and he's just not available, or things change and it's like a lack of communication, or it's issues with his phone, whatever the excuse is. But at the end of the day, I'm an adult, I can compartmentalize it, but she's a child and she can't always. So I know we can't protect our kids from everything, but that's just what I try to do now, so she's not as super disappointed. And it is hard being a default parent, because I get the brunt end of a lot of things. Like maybe she's not seeing him. I know why she's not seeing him, or maybe he flaked, whatever it is. But it's like I get the blame for it, from her, because all she sees mostly is me. So she feels like, okay, maybe you're preventing me from seeing him, which is rarely ever the case. But yeah, that's another part of it too, being a default parent. Also, don't badmouth them in front of your child, or really at all, because I feel like it's not necessary to badmouth the high conflict co-parent, because really their behavior is going to speak for themselves. So yeah, it's really not necessary to even badmouth them in front of anybody, or especially in front of your child, because it's just fruitless, honestly, and their behavior will speak for themselves. It's not a lot that you're going to have to say, oh, your dad didn't, or oh, your mom didn't. Like, your child's going to end up seeing it for themselves. So it's really best to just stay out of it. Even when your child asks you questions like why doesn't my mom or why doesn't my dad do this, like, you can just redirect it back to them. Like, I think you should ask them that personally, because just don't put yourself in the middle, because it can just get very messy very quickly. It really you not bad mouthing them shows your level of maturity, because you're focused on you being a parent, not whatever they're lacking. Also, get your paperwork. So whether that's custody, whether that's child support, whether that's financial assistance, whatever your story is, make sure it is written down on paper. Any like verbal agreement that you have, especially when you're not like in actual marriage, even if you're in a committed relationship, it's still not legal. So I would say, especially when you're on good terms with somebody, get your paperwork for sure. When I did my paperwork, he had no idea. The actual proceedings took over a year, but it was really important for me, especially because he's on the birth certificate. Technically, without paperwork, without custody agreement, he could, take her for a weekend, and that weekend could turn to a week, and it wouldn't be kidnapped or anything like that, because he's actually on the birth certificate. So without like legal custody paperwork, technically both parents have 50-50 in terms of leverage. So it is really important to get your paperwork. And I tell people that all the time, to get their paperwork, but some people feel like, oh, I don't want to go through the course, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. But my thing is, if it's for the safety of your child, just go ahead and pay the court fee or ask for a waiver, whatever you got to do. But it is really important to get your paperwork. Also on the phone, because sometimes even my child father would do this, like talk about getting back together, or just things I really don't care about, things that are fruitless, or maybe what he's going through, or just something that don't really have nothing to do with me. Maybe he's trying to bait me in a conversation. If it's not about my daughter, majority of the time I just hang up, because it can always turn into something else that has nothing to do with the topic at hand, which is you being a father. And it is important, even, whether you're on good terms. Well, like I said, some of this stuff will depend on your situation with your co-parent. But if y'all genuinely have like a cordial relationship, or if it's something like medical, something like serious, I think that they should at least know if y'all are in like some type of contact. So I always tell him about like her doctor's appointments, and I will mention like if she ever has to get on, like, I don't want to speak that into existence, but if she ever like needs any medical attention or anything like that, I do let him know that. Whether he's making and scheduling doctor's appointments or not, I do tell him that. So more importantly, you also have to remember that you cannot control anything that goes on in their household. So I've never really been the type of co-parent that says, oh, don't have any women around my children, or I don't want her around this, I don't want her around that. I know I can't control what he does when I'm not around my child. So I pray over my child. I trust that God will protect her. I trust that God will put her around people that would not bring her in harm's way. And I just have to leave it at that, because I used to sit there and drive myself crazy about who he had around her and what, was she safe? Was she that? Was she this? And it was a certain age, like when she was like a baby, she didn't go over there at all because she can't talk. She can't do anything. Like now she can call me and she can, communicate and things like that. So I do feel more comfortable with her being around as well. And there's so much technology now, like you can put air tags in their shoes, that the co-parent doesn't know about. Just do whatever makes you actually feel comfortable. And if it's even supervised visitation and not them having them overnight or unsupervised, that's okay too. You have to do what makes you comfortable as a parent and what actually will give you a break. I don't even know what that meant. And also, become more than a parent is really important. Whether you're dealing with somebody high conflict or not, it's really important to not lose yourself in just being a parent. So for the moms that's watching, for the dads that's watching, do not lose yourself and just become the parent. Like, go out, have fun. Don't have mom or dad guilt. Don't have parental guilt. If you do not have your child, go do something with yourself. Do more than just clean up your house and, catching up on bills and organizing. Like, go out and do something for yourself. It's really important to remember that you are more than just a parent. Like, you are an actual human. If you believe you are a child of God, like, you are not just a parent. And it's really important to don't lose yourself in just being a parent, because you'll start to become bitter. You can resent yourself and your decision to be a parent. You can end up resenting your children. You're definitely going to resent your co-parent. So just make sure that you are just not losing yourself in parenthood. And when you have a co-parent that is trying to get a reaction out of you, it's really important to remember the spirit behind what they're trying to do and why they're trying to provoke you, and that they're really just letting the enemy use them. So that's really what helps me when I know that it's just, I'm sorry, this light keeps moving. When I know that there's a lot of like facetious behavior. So that also leads me to Ephesians 6, verses 12. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. So it's just reminding us here that we don't just fight against like other humans or other flesh. There's different spirits and just different things that are controlling, that people allow to control them or have open doors for. So there were a couple of instances where I was particularly triggered by my co-parent, and I'm going to list those and just, talk to you guys about like how I responded. So my ex, not my child's father, but my ex after him, he was in jail, and that's in my testimony. So my child's father would just say certain things to trigger me, like, you shouldn't have no other men around my daughter because that's why he was with somebody that got locked up, and he's a convict. He would just say these things to hurt me, and at that time it really did hurt me, because at that time I really did want to be with my ex, and my feelings was genuinely hurt that relationship ended, and I didn't want that relationship to end. So it was very difficult to hear those words. It's kind of like when somebody knows it's an open wound, but they still cut you anyway. So that's how it felt in that moment. There was also another time where we agreed that I was going to pick my daughter up at a certain time, at a certain place. And I went there, and it was like a big community day, like a big, and not a block party, but, they had like moon bounces and food and all this other stuff. So that I'm just saying that because there was a lot of people around, a lot of police around. And this is when my legal case was still open. So I went to pick my daughter up, and then I don't know what happened with my child's father, but something just switched. And he was like, well, I don't want to give her up because in our custody paperwork, it says Friday through Monday. And in my mind, I'm like, when do you ever have her Friday through Monday? But I said, okay. But I said, okay, but we also agreed that I will pick her up at this time. So can you give her to me so I can go? And he basically refused to give her to me. He actually called the police over there. The police said, if you don't have your custody paperwork on hand, that I can't give her to you. And back then I wasn't carrying on hand. Now I have it saved in my phone, and I always have it on me, but I didn't have, and I have a hard copy in the car too, but I didn't have that stuff on me, and it's a shame that I even have to do that. But this is somebody that, you know, I deal with. One minute he cool, one minute he not, and I told y'all that earlier in the podcast. So he basically refused to give her to me. The police said, "There's nothing I can do. I can't help you." And he fell for, you know, my child's father's story of, "Oh, I'm just a single, you know, black father. She's trying to keep my daughter from me," you know, womp, 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 which is a complete lie. And it was just very disappointing. So because I had like my legal case going on, I really couldn't zap out how I wanted to. And don't zap out, y'all. But I really did want to in that moment, because I'm like, not only are you playing with me, but you're trying to make me seem like I'm somebody that I'm not. And at that, you got the police involved. To me, and especially just being a person of color, that's just a whole nother violation when you get the police involved. Like, that just shows how much or how little a person respects you. And I was just like, wow. And I just felt so inadequate because of the legal case I had open. I felt like I couldn't respond, and I'm just like, this just sucks. So I ended up walking away. I just was crying out of like frustration, and I was just so angry. And it's basically like I just had to watch my daughter just, you know, sit there and play. She didn't really know what was going on, but it's just like I could not leave with my daughter, and I hated that moment. And I was just like, in that moment, I think I did say I hated him. That's how angry I was. And you shouldn't say that, but that's how I felt. And he ended up actually following me for a while, and I didn't even know he was walking behind me. But he was like, "Here, you know, just take her. I don't want you to be upset." But I'm like, why did you just create that whole scene? But that's exactly what it's like dealing with somebody that's high conflict. They are all over the place. So yeah, that's just, you know, one example. And again, I did feel worthless because of the case that I had on. But when you feel things like that, it's really important to take those thoughts captive and make it obey the word of God, and also to not even come in agreement with things that you feel. So in Genesis 1 verses 27, it says, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them." So that's reminding us that we are made in the image of God. So even though I was feeling less than in that moment, that actually didn't make me less than. And I really shouldn't have came into agreement with that, but like, that's how I felt at that time. And then it's also Psalms 139 verses 14. "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well." So reminding us as well that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. So those are things I should have came into agreement with at those moments. But at that time, I'm just fire red hot. I just wanted my daughter. I wanted to go home. I was tired. I was working all day. And for him to just pull that, it really was just from left field. Because I'm like, we literally just had a conversation. I agreed to the time I was picking her up. And it was just a mess. And I didn't like that experience. I didn't like how it made me feel. And I was just like, wow, even through all of the work of me getting paperwork, he still could pull this. And, you know, I was powerless in that moment. And I did not like feeling like that. So other issues, you know, with high conflict and dealing with him is always his time management. It's a lot of like changing the schedule of when she's going to get picked up, when she's going to be dropped off. Even when I'm picking her up, it takes him a lot of the times 10, 15 minutes to come outside. It's just, it's very annoying, and it's a very high conflict, a lot of tension a lot of the time. But what I do is I just stay prayed up. I cover my daughter. I ask God to give me the strength. I ask God to help me not be reactive, help me not blow up, just to really even pray for him and continuously forgive him for things that he do, because it's always something, honestly. And but then, like I said, there's times that we do get along, but then it's just times where we just don't. So I really just said all that to say that it's really important that you have a village, and don't rely on your high conflict parent for everything, especially like last minute things that come up. So it's really good for you to have a village or build a village and have people that you can call on if need be, even pay for childcare. It's really important for you to just not be so wrapped up in only being a parent. I would just say continuously cover yourself. Don't react. Don't backslide. Ask God to really just cover you in this season, especially when your children are younger. And I can't really say necessarily always gets easier when they're older. You just have like different issues that you have to navigate through, because of course, especially for girls, like you really need your dad. You need both your parents, but you really need your dad growing up to show you the way. So I would pray that he would remain in his life. But unfortunately, I know a lot of the co-parenting strife is because I don't want to be romantically involved with him. And I think if I was, we would possibly have less conflict. And that does sadden me to say, because, you know, my daughter deserves someone that chooses her every single day. Which I know he loves her, but I do think some of that is tied into if him and I are getting along or not. And I think it's just very mundane, I would say that. But I'm going to end the podcast here. I pray that, me sharing and me being transparent really encourage someone, one, to understand that you're not by yourself and that you can still co-parent and you still can honor God, even if technically your child was made, out of covenant. So I just think it's important to talk about because all the time churches don't talk about things like this, and it's more than one demographic of parents. And I'm not saying to continue to make babies out of wedlock, but if you made your decision and you're, doing your best to honor God, I think that's the most important thing to acknowledge. So I'm going to pray us out. Lord God, just thank you for giving me yet another podcast topic to speak about today, God. I pray that this just ministers to someone. I pray that someone else will feel heard, feel seen. Someone else will receive deliverance from me sharing and me being transparent, God. I pray that you increase, God, today and that my flesh decrease. I pray that your people will hear from it, God. I pray that even the single parents that are watching this, mother or fathers, that they'll remember that it's a 99 for the one. You have not forgotten about us, God. You are continuing to provide for us and make a way. So, God, even when we're frustrated, even when we feel like we don't have nothing left, God, I pray that we're just reminded that you are breathing into us and you are giving us your strength so that we can be the best parents that we can. A part of being good parents is also taking care of ourselves, God. So I just pray against any shame, any condemnation of being a single parent, God. And it's just so important for us to just give honor, give glory back to you. And it's an honor and a privilege to be a parent, God. So even in our frustration, I pray that we remember that. And I pray that we understand that our children are also going to be given back to you, God, because we honor you and we respect you. So I lift this prayer up, God. I exalt you in Jesus' name. Amen.